Hey, you're listening to the wrong podcast. Topics today include children, creativity, and cancer.
Wrong! It's the wrong podcast, but we'll make it right. Spinning the world in a whole new light. Witty, wild, and a little askew, and the one who's right, it might be you. Oh, it might be you.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm here to talk about politics, culture, religion, sports, and anything else you're not allowed to talk about in polite company. Issue number 1! Do it yourself! Hey, I have been playing around with Claude. Claude is my preferred AI agent. Recently, they came out with a new version. It's called Opus 4.6. Big fan of Opus, by the way. Love Bloom County. That's a very obscure reference at this point in time, but that's the truth. Anyways, Opus 4.6 came out. I read this article that said, hey, ChatGPT and Claude just came out with new versions. They're amazing. Just go try them. If you don't know what you're doing, that's okay. They're very patient. You just say, I don't understand, or teach me how to do this thing. So I took the challenge upon myself. I made a website that looks and functions like Netflix. You just give the website some YouTube videos or Vimeo videos, just the links. I asked Claude to make this website for me. It looks like Netflix. It took 2 hours for Claude to put this website together. I did zero coding. Zero. I know how to make a website. I didn't do any of the stuff I know how to do other than to tell somebody else, specifically Claude, make a website. Okay, now change the fonts. Okay, now make sure the videos play in the background. Okay, now add a trailer button. 2 hours, fully functioning. I could charge money on this website. It'd be a bad idea because I think Netflix has kind of got the market cornered. I'm just saying what's possible. Second project, I was like, okay, I'm going to teach myself how to make an app for Android phones. What could I do? I've got a 10-year-old. She loves cats. Her favorite part of every video game is choosing what outfit the character is wearing, what their hair color is. Okay, I'm making an app where she can design a cat. Made this whole thing. You push a button, and then AI turns your configuration of a cat into a video of a real cat. And I'm a graphic designer, so I made all the graphics for this. I've got that part cornered. I'm better at it than Claude is. Claude's not great at the graphics. Other AIs are better at that kind of thing. Claude's great at code. So I handled the graphics. This thing fully works. I've got it on my phone. I've got a website version. It's really cool. It's really cool that what this thing can do. Again, no coding on my part. I've never made an app before in my life. This thing is functional enough that I could put it on the Play Store right now. It's ready to go. I recently saw somebody, they posted, a snippet or a quote or something, and it said, don't let AI rob us of human creativity. And I don't think that's the issue. I think it might be the issue for some people, okay? It's not entirely wrong. But I don't think it's really the thing we need to be worried about with AI. There's lots of things to be worried about. Don't get me wrong. We should be having serious conversations about ethics and morality and safeguards. Absolutely. I'm an early adopter. Adapter. I'm an early adapter. That's the phrase. And, if I wanted to, I could have AI edit that out and clean it up. The point is that I think AI is a tool, and I don't think it's going to I don't think it's going to eliminate creativity. I think it's going to enhance creativity because it removes the need for skill in creativity. There's things that some people can't do. It would have taken me many, many hours to learn how to code this app. I actually have the skill to make the website. It would have taken me over 120 hours, I think, to make this website work the way it does. AI removes the barrier of skill when pursuing creativity. There's something you can't do? That's fine. You can go find some AI tool that can do it for you, whether it's drawing or creating audio or coding. It's an amazing tool. Let me tell you something about hiring an expert. You hire somebody to come do something at your house or to come do something for your business. You are hiring an expert. And what makes them an expert is that they have a certain set of skills that you don't have. You hire them for their skill. Or sometimes you hire them because they have access to a tool. So a guy who drives a bulldozer or digs a hole with a backhoe, they're not all that skilled. They have this amazing tool that can dig holes really well. It's not that the guy knows how to dig holes really well. He just knows how to use the tool. And in some cases, someone is skilled with the tool. So they have the tool. You could get the tool, but you could never use it as well as they do because they use it all the time. So you hire them because they have the tool and they're skilled at it. And AI is changing all of this. It's changing it right now in front of us. Digital tools no longer require you to have skill to use them. I'm an expert at Adobe Photoshop. Truly, I am an expert. In all the world's population, I'm in the 99th percentile of people who know how to use Photoshop and know how to use it well. And, we're talking 7 billion people. So to put me in the 1% is not all that hard. There is a skill you can do in Photoshop where you remove an object from the background and you put it on a transparent background. This is something that used to take a significant amount of skill. And right now you can literally click a button and Photoshop will do it for you in about 15 seconds. It could have taken hours in the past. It takes 15 seconds now, and it does it really well. You don't need the skill in order to use Photoshop anymore. Now you just need the tool. And that is also changing. Very soon, you will not need the tool even. You might say, hey, I really need this thing that Photoshop does, but Photoshop's really expensive, but I just need this one function. I just need to change all the images to sepia tone. Well, you've got that on your phone already. Let me think of something more advanced, like putting an object on a transparent background, for example. I really need to do that for this presentation I'm making, but Photoshop is expensive. How do I do this? Well, you are no longer confined to Photoshop. You can literally go on Claude and say, write an app for me that works on my phone, or write a program for me that works on my desktop computer that will take any object and remove it from its background and put it on a transparent background. That's possible for you right now. You don't have to pay for programs. And so if you are on your phone and there's something you want to do, there's something you want to play with, but you don't like the app, it's expensive, or it plays too many ads, you can go to Claude and say, write me an app that does this thing. Last night, I just was playing around with this idea, and I told Claude, write me a web app that allows me to play Wordle. Here's a list of words that's used in Wordle. This is a publicly available list. I didn't steal it from anybody. It's sitting out there in the open. Here's 10,000 words that can be used in Wordle. Create an app like Wordle for me. And I wrote this program. I didn't write this program. I just told it to write the program. I downloaded it on my phone. It works in the browser. You could do this too. Any web game you like, particularly a simple web game. So this is going to get more and more advanced as we go. Right now, AI, as far as coding goes, can do hours of work. In the very near future, it will be able to do days of work. It'll just stay focused. It'll do days of work for you. It will give you the end product when it's finished. It runs in the background. You don't have to be watching it happen. And you can expect this to be part of your operating system. Whether you're on Windows or Apple or on your Android phone or on your iPhone, it will be built in. You will have it there. If you don't have it there, well, then you can just get Claude or you can get ChatGPT. You can get an app to do it for you. And you'll gladly pay the $20 a month or less to do it if it's not given to you for free. But I've got a good hunch that they're going to give it to you for free to keep you using the operating system, because you could write your own operating system. And you won't go to the Play Store looking for an app. You'll have an idea of what you need to happen, and you'll just say, hey, create an app for me that is an inflation calculator, or converts money from Spanish bullion into US dollars and does the inflation calculation for me. It's all coming very soon. Issue number 2, Sassy Molassy. Hey, I have a favorite politician, and that is a weird thing to say. Nobody has a favorite politician. That's not true. There are people who very much have a favorite politician. We know who they are. We know who their favorite politician is, in fact. And I will just say it's a strange thing for me to say, because I'm not the type of person who will say that he has a favorite politician. But my favorite politician right now is actually not in politics. He dropped out of politics, in part because he's the kind of person who would become my favorite politician. His name is Ben Sasse, and he used to be a senator from Nebraska. And politics wasn't going the way he thought it should go, and he thought there were better things he could be doing with his time that would have more impact on the world. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but Congress is broken. Congress does not want to work. They are not interested in writing laws. They are not interested in holding the executive branch accountable. Either party, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter who's the president, Congress just would rather sit out, because making decisions means they might be held accountable, and they would rather keep their jobs than do their work. And Ben Sasse, he became a senator about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, something like that. He waited a full year before he made his first speech on the Senate floor. And I'm going to play part of that speech, and I'm telling you, I had the hardest time editing this down, figuring out what part of this speech I wanted to play. I will leave a link in my show notes so you can watch the whole speech. It is worth your time. I really mean that. It is worth your time to watch this speech. Here is just a clip of his very first speech on the Senate floor.
There are good and bad reasons to be unpopular. A good reason would be to suffer for waging an honorable fight for the long term that has near-term political downsides, like telling seniors the truth that the amount they've paid in for Social Security and Medicare is far, far less than they think and far, far less than they're currently receiving. That would be a good reason to be unpopular. But we all know, deep down, that the real reason the political class is unpopular is not because of our relentless truth-telling, but because of politicians' habit of regularized pandering to those who most easily already agree with us. The soundbite culture, whether in our stand-ups for 90-second TV in the Russell Rotunda, or our press releases, or what we all experienced on our campaigns, both for and against, the soundbite culture is everywhere around us. We understand that. But do we also understand and affirm here in this body that this place was built expressly to combat that kind of reductionism, that short-termism? The Senate is a word with two meanings. It is the 100 of us, as a community, as a group, as a body. That's an important metaphor. And it's this room. This is the chamber where we assemble supposedly to debate the really big things. But what happens in this chamber now is what is most disheartening to a newbie like me. As our constituents know, something is awry here. We, in recent decades, again, this is a body, not just us, but what we've inherited. We, in recent decades, have allowed short-termism and the soundbite culture to invade this chamber and to reduce so many of our debates to fact-free zones. Mr. President, I mentioned that I've done two kinds of work before coming here. I was a historian / college president and a crisis turnaround guy. While those sound really different, they actually have a lot of similarities because they're both driven by a kind of deliberation, a kind of Socratic speech. Good history is good storytelling, and good storytelling demands empathy. It requires understanding different actors, differing motivations, and competing goals. Reducing everything immediately to good versus evil, it's bad history. Not only because it isn't true, and because it's unpersuasive, but because it's really boring. Good history, on the other hand, demands that one be able to talk Socratically, that you can present alternate viewpoints, not straw man arguments, and explain how people got to where they are. Similarly, can you imagine a business strategist who presents just one idea and immediately announces that it's the only right idea, the only plausible idea, every other idea is both stupid and wicked? How would companies respond to such a strategist? They would fire that guy. A good strategist, by contrast, puts the best construction on a whole range of scenarios, outlines the best criticisms of each option, especially including the option that you plan to argue for most passionately, and then you assume that your competitors will actually upgrade their game in response to your opening moves. This is a kind of Socratic speech. But bizarrely, we don't do that very much around here. We don't have many actual debates. This is a place that would be quite difficult today to describe as the greatest deliberative body in the world, something that was true through much of our history. Socrates said it is dishonorable to make the lesser argument appear the greater, or to take someone else's argument and distort it so that you don't have to engage their strongest points. Yet here on this floor, we regularly devolve into a kind of bizarre politician speech. We hear the robotic recitation of talking points. Well, guess what? Normal people don't talk like this. They don't like that we do, and more important than whether or not they like us, they don't trust their government because we do.
After listening to that, you can probably get some idea. If you're a regular listener of this podcast, you probably have some idea why I appreciate Senator Ben Sasse so much. And it is a shame. It hurts me. It actually emotionally hurts me that Ben Sasse was born at the wrong period of time. He came into politics as populism was on the rise. And he is not the kind of politician who's going to be popular in an era of populism. He is thoughtful, he is deliberate. He waited a year before giving a speech. That is an anathema to today's congressmen and senators. They're all trying to get on TV or on the radio or on some podcast all the time. That wasn't his play. He didn't think that was the best use of his time. He didn't think that's what he was sent there to do. And he came into politics when that is the job for many, many people. That's what we expect them to do. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that kind of politician. And let me just tell you right now, I have the word populism sitting on my screen just past the microphone. And so that's why every time I want to say the word politician, I start saying population, because that word is right there. So that's a little mystery behind the magic of the podcast. Don't put the word populism right behind the microphone if you want to say any other word ever. Anyway, Ben Sasse, I believe if he had come into politics at a different era when populism wasn't the flavor of the day, he would have become president of the United States. Maybe he wouldn't have been president, but he would have been nominated by the Republican Party for sure. Eventually, somewhere along the line, he would have been a household name. And in an era of populism, he is not the kind of guy who's going to become a household name. And in fact, he got frustrated. There was no reason. He left politics. He went and did something else. I bring this up because he is in the news again. Even though he left politics, 2-3 years ago, he's in the news again today because 8 weeks ago, he announced that he has terminal pancreatic cancer. And when it was discovered, it had already metastasized to his liver and his spinal column, and he was given 3 months to live. And he let everybody know right away, I'm dying. Our days are numbered. Mine are exactly known. And in last week, he gave 2 interviews about his time in dealing with cancer. And I'm going to play a clip from one of those interviews. I will leave a link so you can hear this entire interview. It is beautiful. He brings wisdom and grace to the task of dying. And I highly encourage you to hear what he has to say about his own journey to death. Here is just a clip from that interview.
I wouldn't do this if you weren't a friend, and I also wouldn't do it if you weren't you. But I think you may be able to answer the question. There's a bit in the Bible. Actually, it's the shortest verse in the entire Bible, so you already know where I'm going with this. And I've always wondered about it. So here we are. Jesus arrives at the tomb of Lazarus, his friend who has just died. And in a moment, he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead. And by the way, Martha, Lazarus' sister, comes running up and says, if you had gotten here a couple of days earlier, he would never have died. And but then we have Jesus wept. Shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. So he knows that we suffer. And he suffers through it. What is the point? It's still constructed to permit us to suffer. Why? This is the problem of pain. I know that it's such a permanent problem. I know that every philosopher and every junior philosopher has always addressed it so that it seems that you can't talk about it without sounding trite. But it bothers me.
It feels real to talk about it right now when I'm having a radiating set of pain out of a tumor in my spine. Pain is real, so it seems like the first thing humans should do is acknowledge that a lot is broken in this world. The existence of death is surely not the way it's supposed to be. So Jesus weeping, what a gift. First of all, the story is amazing. The whole Lazarus story and his sister's weirdly narcissistic behavior. That's us, right? Like we're dying in the story too. We're many of the characters, but we're definitely that egotistical, self-absorbed, Jesus, why didn't you do it the way I want you to do it? But to our point about short attention spans, first, let's just go back and read that story and a dozen adjacent stories. The Bible is so rich and we spend so little time reading it together. Jesus weeps there and he knows that he's going to raise Lazarus 5 minutes later. So it's an amazing story because he's acknowledging that death is terrible and yet death doesn't win. The Christian phrase in Christian literature for years has been to call death the last enemy. Jesus wept, 2 words, last enemy, 2 words. Pretty great. Death is a wicked thief. It's an enemy, but it's pretty great that it's the last enemy. All the stuff that I regret for having been an inadequate husband and son and father and friend and worker, truth teller, all the stuff that I've been weak on, I'm going to be freed from all of that. Death is the last enemy.
Hey, it's time. What are the rules?
Oh, what are the rules? What are the rules? Don't touch my fries or my garden tools. Oh, what are the rules? Yeah, I've got my quirks. Follow them closely and I promise it works.
We have our first corporate sponsor on the podcast. That's right, Pottery Barn. Go to Pottery Barn, buy your stuff. That was what they told me to read. They reached out and said, Tim, we want to sponsor. What are the rules this week? Just make up a tagline for us. I'm kidding. They didn't actually reach out to me. Don't sue me, Pottery Barn. But this is on your behalf, Pottery Barn. This is for you. I don't know if you remember, but John Kerry and George W. Bush were debating what to do about Iraq. And there was a lot of debate about whether or not we should have invaded Iraq after 9/11. And John Kerry, he said that the Pottery Barn rule was in effect. If you break it, you fix it.
Senator Kerry, you have 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds, right? Then
Secretary of State Colin Powell told this president the Pottery Barn rule. If you break it, you fix it. Now, if you break it, you made a mistake. It's the wrong thing to do, but you own it.
And it's often been termed, if you break it, you buy it. And just yesterday, I was watching Meet the Press, and Lindsey Graham was talking about the attacks on Iran, and he made reference to the Pottery Barn rule.
You know this idea, you break it, you own it? I don't buy that one bit.
And what Pottery Barn would like you to know is that they have excellent customer service. They want you to come into their store. They want you to pick stuff up. And if you happen to break it, please do not fix it, for one. They're not interested in you fixing it because they can't sell it if you try to fix it. But more importantly, if you break it, you don't have to buy it. That's what Pottery Barn wants you to know. Break it, fine, it's great. You only have to worry about it if you bought it and walked out. Bought it and then break it, that's a problem. Break it, no buy it. That's what Pottery Barn wants you to know. Remember, I want to know what's wrong with you.
What's wrong with you?
If you'd like to submit a question, topic, or tell me how I was wrong, you can email me at listen@thewrongpodcast.com or submit a comment at my website, thewrongpodcast.com. And smash that subscribe button. That's what all the kids say on the YouTubes, right? Subscribing to my podcast will help you get the latest episode. You won't have to think about it. It'll just show up on your feed, on your device. If you don't know how to do it, ask Claude. And help me spread the wrong message. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends. Now it's time for my favorite part of the show. I was wrong.
I was wrong. Oh, I was wrong.
Listener Brent writes in and says,
So lane splitting, that's what it's called when motorcyclists weave between lanes, is actually legal in California as of 2017, though it's safest when done at only 10 to 15 miles per hour, faster than traffic and between the first two lanes. Definitely a risky move either way, but thought you might like to know the actual name for your next episode. In your last segment of your Mother Hubbard Baby Machine episode, you made the comment that commercial surrogacy is a form of prostitution. Wondering if you also consider surrogacy as a form of servitude or slavery?
Thank you, Brent, for the phrase lane splitting. I appreciate that. I was hunting for that phrase, and I'm sure you were sitting there screaming at your device, trying to tell me that it's called lane splitting. My apologies. Thank you, Brent. No, I do not think surrogacy is a form of slavery. I think it's exploitative. You know, whatever that word is, that's what I think it is. I use the word prostitution. I think it's an appropriate word. I don't think it's slavery. Listener Christy.
I watch Dateline and 48 Hours every week. I live in the Czech Republic and got a VPN just so I could watch them from here. Sometimes 2020, but they usually cover stories that have already been covered by the other two. I also listen to a bunch of true crime podcasts. I particularly like My Favorite Murder, which is actually true crime comedy. Surrogates are usually not biologically related to the infant, and at least one of the intended parents usually is biologically related. There are also studies showing that the children are not traumatized by the separation from the gestational carrier as long as they form an appropriate attachment to the parents. All that said, there should absolutely be laws governing surrogacy, and commercial surrogacy is pretty gross. There are many ethical options for expanding a family, even when the old-fashioned way is impossible, and commercial surrogacy scores lowest on the ethics scale.
Thank you, Chrissy. I appreciate you writing in. Issue number 3. Accusations and confessions. Back in 2006, I saw this documentary. It's called Deliver Us from Evil. And it is about the Catholic sexual abuse scandal. And this documentary infuriated me. It's an incredibly hard documentary to watch. It's not going to be for everybody.
I've been down on bended knee. They knew children were being victimized, and they did nothing except ensure that law enforcement would not find out. Talking to the man from Galilee.
They squelched the report, and they carried on as normal.
He spoke to me with a voice so sweet.
Do you think that somebody should have told the cops that O'Grady had been previously accused? Repeat that, please.
I thought I heard the shuffle of angels. He has so many victims, I don't think he can keep track. I think it's in the hundreds.
I am battling to regain my life back.
He said, go do my will.
I've encountered deception, perjury, denial, and deceit at the highest levels of Catholic Church.
Tell him that God's gonna cut you down.
Do you think if a child were raped, that would be something that you would forget?
Object. Instruct the witness not to answer.
And it wasn't the child abuse that really upset me. Child abuse is by far the worst part of that story. By far the worst part. We understand that there are evil people out there, and they will do evil things to children. What made me really angry was the way that the Catholic bishops treated the problem. That they knew it was happening, and they didn't think it disqualified anybody from ministry, and they would just move people around to other parts of the country so that they could exploit other children somewhere else.
He had sexual urges towards a 9-year-old. Is that cause to remove him from ministry?
No.
It boggled my mind that these men thought this might at all be appropriate. And it boggled my mind that Catholics weren't irate about it as well. That nobody was going to the Catholic bishops and demanding that they resign. Because that's what I felt should have happened. And let me tell you, the years have gone by. It's been 20 years since that documentary came out. And I feel like I get it a little bit more with my friends in the Catholic Church. Don't get me wrong. I still think that the bishops should have done something. And I still think that Catholics in the pews should have risen up against the bishops for failing to protect their own children. But I get it because I've now come to realize that the Protestant evangelical world is not free of these accusations. We are right there with them. And the only difference was the amount of time it took for our sins to be exposed. For example, in the Southern Baptist Convention, it's the largest evangelical denomination in the United States, there was a major fight about whether or not the Baptist churches should inform one another when one of their pastors gets caught abusing one of their congregants, or one of their children in particular. They had a big fight about this. People had to leave the conference because they really thought that this should happen, and other people said no, and you need to leave if you think this should happen. And they had legal justifications for doing this, and those legal justifications were nonsense. They will absolutely inform one another if a pastor is a heretic. It doesn't believe exactly what the Southern Baptist Convention says they believe. They'll let each other know. They'll inform other people. They'll inform other Baptists that this church is no longer a Baptist church. But if you want to tell other pastors and other churches in other parts of the country that this guy harmed children, well, no, we can't do that. And I don't understand the motivation of the people objecting to this. I do not understand their motivation at all. I want to assign motivations to them. It's not appropriate for me to assign motivations to them. But I can judge them based on their actions. And I don't think they're doing enough to protect children. whatever legal consequences they think might get in the way of doing this sort of thing, it's worth it. It's so clearly worth it to me. There's another scandal that's emerged. There is a campground. There's a number of camps. They're called the Kanakuk camps, and they're based in Joplin, Missouri. I think they're in several states, but right in the middle of the Bible Belt. Something like 500,000 kids have gone to their camps since they were created about 90 years ago. And they had a guy who was sexually abusing children and doing it in just the worst sorts of ways. Whatever stories you've heard about the Catholic sex abuse scandal, they were happening at Kanakuk camps by one of their camp directors. His name was Pete Newman, and he wasn't the only one. And let me tell you, I get it. When you bring a bunch of children together, it's going to attract predators. Nobody who has children in their care is going to be immune from predators showing up. And there's always going to be the first time the predator decides to act. There's always going to be the first time the predator gets caught. There's only so much we can do. There's lots we can do and should do, but predators are crafty and they will get around our reporting. They'll get around our background checks. They'll get around our rules about where you can be and where you can't be with children, alone with children. Well, the problem isn't that they didn't have enough rules, and that is true. They did not have enough rules. They did not understand what they were doing and what kind of protocols needed to be in place. The problem was that they knew that Pete Newman was acting out and that he was being inappropriate, and he was being sexually inappropriate. And they went to Pete and they went to his wife and told his wife that she needed to make sure that he wasn't distracted. In other words, it was on her to make sure that all of his sexual energy was being used up so that he didn't bring it to the workplace. And he was an employee for 14 years, and for at least 9 of them, they knew that he was being inappropriate with kids. Eventually, they found out how inappropriate, and they found out how inappropriate because he was eventually arrested. They didn't find out on their own. They didn't take him to the police. The police came to them, took Pete away, and then they found out how bad things were. And they made victims sign non-disclosure agreements so people couldn't warn other people about what this guy was doing. And it wasn't just Pete Newman. They had other abusers in their midst. And it boggles my mind that the directors of Kanakuk camps weren't dismissed. They are in place today. Here is Joe White. He is the president or CEO of Kanakuk camps. Here he is in a deposition talking about why he didn't fire Pete Newman.
Now, in response to the complaint about the nude four-wheeling, it's true, isn't it, that you could have fired Pete Newman at that time?
I could have.
That was an option available to you?
Sure.
You chose not to?
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you choose not to fire Pete Newman at that time?
If you can, and I know you're kind of new to Kanakuk, but if you can imagine a person who has been operating, to our knowledge, in thunderous applause of kids, parents, fellow workers, countless, you're a hero to our child, he had more kids doing year-round Bible studies, which is one of our top measures of success with kids, that they're engaged in their, he had a Bible study called Iron Man, which was a year-round study, and he had countless kids in that. And all I heard, and again, I didn't travel with Pete, I didn't manage Pete, but all I heard was, like I said in the quote, over and over again. I mean, just like I had never heard about any director of Kanakuk or any assistant director or any counselor of life-changing person in my child's life. People took him on vacations with their kids. I mean, and then there was in my mind, a 30-minute incident, albeit improper, immature, but in this giant ovation of accolades, appreciation, applause, but people knew him and spent more time with him than I did. It was just like this incident, and I referred a minute ago to a second incident in 2003. It was like a cascade of a waterfall of appreciation, applause, accolades. Way to go. Thank you for changing my kid's life. Thank you for turning around my kid. Thank you for, he comes back home after being with you. He's the boy we never had before. We just heard that over and over and over again. And then there were 2 drops of water that we did not think were poison at that time. We thought they were inappropriate.
Okay, so Joe doesn't feel the need to do something about this inappropriate behavior. Joe stays on in his job. His board says, oh, you're right, Joe. It wasn't your fault. You couldn't have known. You're going to stay in place. That boggles my mind that Joe isn't resigning. It boggles my mind that the board isn't demanding he resign from his job because he failed to protect children. Okay, both of those things are happening. I don't agree. The evangelical world doesn't care either. People are still sending their kids to these camps. Everybody's they're just shrugging their shoulders. They're turning a blind eye to it. Almost every major Christian musical artist you can think of has been in partnership with Kanakuk camps. Michael W. Smith, Stephen Curtis Chapman, Lecrae, their names have been associated with Kanakuk camps after the scandal was discovered. The owners of the Kansas City Chiefs, they're the Hunt family, incredibly wealthy, powerful people, major supporters of Kanakuk camps. They stay in lockstep with Joe White and Kanakuk camps, despite the fact that we know that they did not protect children. And Joe White eventually put out a statement saying, this has hurt me so badly, you have no idea. I know it's hurt the victims even more, but it's hurt me personally, emotionally so badly. Please forgive us. Please, let's have a conversation. Please, let's reconcile. And Joe, you need to recognize that you're hurting Kanakuk camps by sticking around. You shouldn't remain. If you really believe in the mission of these camps, hand it off to somebody else where they can get a clean start, where they can say, we're so sorry that happened with the old management. It won't be like that anymore. What are you still doing around at these camps? You failed. That brings me to a third story. Here in Southern California, there is a church. It's called Crossline Community Church. It has a beautiful campus, easily one of the most beautiful campuses in Southern California. It's a very popular wedding destination. They have a chapel set aside for weddings. It's booked out all the time because it's so beautiful, because the campus is so beautiful. Last July, one of their staff members, he was in charge of IT and the sound board and the sound department, all that kind of stuff. He was coming back from a mission trip to Haiti. The FBI arrested him in Miami. They found evidence of child pornography on his laptop. And then they discovered that he had been giving laptops to teenagers in the congregation to, quote unquote, help them out. And he had installed spyware on these laptops so that he could secretly record them in their bedrooms and in their bathroom. And he had video saved on his personal devices from these kids in the church. Gross, awful. I hope he's in jail for a very long time. He has a wife. He has 2 kids under the age of 5. Awful, awful, awful. Well, it turns out that in 2009, this guy had been at a Christian camp and had set up a hidden camera in a women's bathroom or women's locker room and was recording women and children in this locker room. And he was arrested for it. And somehow he was arrested for invasion of privacy. So he comes to the church and he tells them that he had a porn addiction. And they say, okay, good. We hope you're over that. Welcome to staff. In 2019, somebody reaches out. One of the victims of this guy reaches out to the church and says, hey, maybe you didn't know, but he did this stuff to me. And the pastors say, yes, we fully know that he has a past. We know everything about his past, but he's a changed man, so we trust him. That was in 2019. It's 2026, and good Lord, what a scandal. And the pastors, they tell everybody, we didn't know anything. We knew he had a pornography addiction 15 years ago. We didn't know that he was hurting kids. Except there's this email and a response saying, yes, we knew, but it's all good. And immediately the children's, all the staff that deal with children, all the staff that deal with teenagers, high schoolers, junior high, pastors, children's pastors, they all resign. Over half the staff leave. 2 of the elders leave. And people are just sticking it out. The pastor and some of the elders, they're like, no, this is fine. We're going to get through this. They've hired somebody to investigate, but they have just royally messed this up. 2/3 or 3/4 of the congregants have left. They're going to lose this church. I do not understand what the end game is for them, where they see a path forward from this, because it is just going to hang over the church for as long as that senior pastor is there. That this leadership team, this elder board, and this pastor decided that the pastor's job was more important than the protection of children. I don't get it.
Matthew 18. At that time the disciples came to Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them, and said, Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me, but whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck, and to be drowned in the depth of the sea.
But I could be wrong. If you think I am, let me know. Let me know why. I had fun and I hope you did too. Bye-bye.